Hello, it's Special Constable Bill Gordon from the Midland Police Service, and this brief video is meant to speak to and show you how to protect yourself from phishing scams that come through the email. The number one question I get asked when I do my public speaking is, how do you actually identify a phishing email? What can you use to differentiate between it and a legitimate email? Well, today I'm going to highlight a few of those changes. As you can see here, this is one that's been coming through the system for the past few days. The only difference is it's a different bank that's identified as they go through all the possibilities for banking for the Canadian victims. So today's example is one from BMO, and you can see that this email comes through. It's rather alarming for folks to learn that their online access to their bank accounts being locked. The email itself comes complete with this snazzy little graphic that's lifted right from the Bank of Montreal's website. And then the wording is actually reasonably well spelled in this case. Sometimes you can get tipped off with grammatical errors. However, the scammers have been learning that their response to their phishing attempts lessen with the more grammatical errors and incorrect English they use. So they've been getting people to actually write this stuff up and vet it before it goes out. So in this case, it says our online access has been locked. And then it says your online banking access has been locked due to an unusual number of failed login attempts. And then it warns us that we'll need to sign in to BMO's online banking to start the verification process. And of course, this is the fake sign-in page they've created that's going to elicit all kinds of personal information from you that'll allow them to simply assume your identity and pretty much do anything they want as you on the internet. Then it goes on to say that once you've confirmed your identity, you'll be able to access your service. Well, of course, that's fake. What they should say is once you've confirmed your identity, they'll be able to access your service. So let's move on here and to how we can tell this is actually a fake email. I guess the first thing to look at is where's it coming from. It's being identified as being coming from the Bank of Montreal. That's normally where the name field would appear. And you can see the email address that it was sent from is a no reply, which is just a format of email that typically tells recipients that don't bother trying to reply to this account because it's not monitored. But what you will notice, though, is that the domain name is not Bank of Montreal or any of their derivatives, or even a lookalike. A lot of times these scammers will register a very similar looking domain name, and they will send an email out from it, and at first glance it may look legitimate to you. But in this case, they haven't even bothered to go through that trouble. So what you see is this voicenet.com email address, which of course has nothing to do with Bank of Montreal. So that would be your number one tip-off that this message is probably coming from a spoofed or a someone other than the Bank of Montreal. The next and most important way to tell are these clickable links that are inside of the email itself. If you hover over this link without clicking on it, in most email programs you'll either see a window pop up right about my cursor that actually shows the URL that you're about to click on, or in my particular application, you'll see down at the bottom right box, and I'll highlight this for you, that the actual link that we're going to land on has nothing to do with BMO online banking. In this case, it's something cafemigliore.com.au, which is a Australian based domain name, and then there's a subfolder of media and a subfolder of system, a subfolder of CSS, and then a .scripts folder. So what's happened is this domain name, cafemigliore.com.au, has gotten hacked, or pwned as they call it in hacker world, and they've added to the CSS folder, which had incorrect permissions on it likely, a .scripts folder where they've put their nasty script that's sending out this email. And it's also destined to collect the responses from you. So we know right away that this link that we're looking at is fraudulent and it isn't actually pointing to Bank of Montreal. Here's another place though where they might point you to a lookalike domain, something very similar to what you'd expect to see. Perhaps it would be bmo.online or bmoonline.au or bmo-online services, something that is similar but not actually the intended place. I guess the number one thing before I get deeper into this is to remind you that your bank is never going to send you an email like this with a clickable link to log into their system. It just doesn't happen. What will happen is you'll try and log into your bank account on their website, and it will tell you that you've exceeded the number of attempts, and you'll still be in their website when you get the links to unlock your account or go through the process of verifying your identity. They will not send you an email, a text message, a Facebook message, or any other way of communicating with you with a link to get you to click. They simply don't do that to protect you and to protect themselves from the fraud and all the money it costs them. But in this case, we're going to pretend that we're really naive and that we're not a beneficiary of having learned any of this information. We're just going to believe this is a valid link. So we're going to click on it. And in this case, because the scam's been running for a few days, this particular website, Google Chrome and Google themselves have already been alerted to the fact that this is a phishing website. So Google Chrome anyway is trying to protect me from going any further. For the purpose of this demo though, I'm going to ignore those protections and I'm going to proceed at my own risk. Now I want you to look carefully at the URL at the top. So we've landed on a page within Google that's intercepted our request to go to this Cafe Migliore, and it's presented this little warning. When I go proceed at my own risk, it's going to take me to the Cafe Migliore website, and then you notice we're immediately going to bounce out of that website and go to another website. That's called a redirect, and the scammers will do that because they don't actually host their scamming scripts, the ones that are going to suck all your personal information. They don't actually host that on this hacked server. They're simply using the hacked server as a way to bounce you to their server. So I'm going to click on this, and what happens? Look at that. Look at our URL. We've been redirected to, it happens to be Russia, I believe, or Romania. I believe it's Romania actually. ecomass.ro. And then we see a subfolder and another subfolder. Well, this website as well that we've been redirected to is also being reported as a phishing site. But once again, I'm going to ignore this warning because when this is a fresh scam, these warnings will not show up for you immediately, and you'll actually be presented with the web page. So I'm going to proceed at my own risk, and here I go. I am still on this ecomass.ro website, and you can see all the scripts that are going on in the background. And what I'm presented with here is a cloned page. This page is a simply copy and paste of the source code from a valid Bank of Montreal login site, and they've adapted it so that when you press continue on these buttons and submit your information, it doesn't go to Bank of Montreal, it goes to their scripts in the back end that's collecting information from you. So I'm going to put anything in here, and I'm going to click on continue. And this is now telling me that my access has been locked, and it's just trying to make me feel better about the whole scam that I need to click continue to verify myself. So I'm going to do that. And it's asking for my full name and my password. Now it's not really telling me what password, but very likely it's going to be my online banking password that it's asking for. So I'm going to put just some junk in here and the same kind of nonsense in there and sign in. And of course there's no authentication. It's not actually talking to BMO to see if it's valid. It's simply blindly harvesting whatever you put into those fields, presuming that it's legitimate. Then we get to these questions. These are the challenge questions that you're supposed to answer. And this is a very long list. Pretty much any of the major questions that are asked on these banking websites, the questions are all in this list. So they've covered all the bases. So if you legitimately pick what is your mother's middle name and put in valid information, and you legitimately pick your first friend's name, and then you say what color was your first car, these are all normal type questions you get. You're now filling in very detailed personal information that only you would know. And well, unfortunately, as soon as I continue, they're now as well going to know this personal information, so they can assume your identity. So when I click continue, I get congratulated that my online banking access has been restored and that we can now sign in. Well, all that information I submitted is now sitting on their server or sent an email to the scammers. They now can assume your identity pretty much anywhere. When I click sign in, you'll notice here when I hover over it, the link that I'm being taken to is still on this ecomass.ro server. However, when I click on it, it actually redirects me. Look where I am now. I'm using a secure connection. On this browser it shows up as a green lock, and I have the HTTPS in front of it. I've got a secure connection to www.bmo.com, which in fact is the real website that they copied. So now whatever details I put in here are actually going to BMO and I'm logging in, but of course so are the scammers at the same time. So hopefully this has taught you a little bit about how to protect yourself from phishing emails that have bogus redirection links in them, designed to lull you into some sense of security that you're actually logging into what purports to be a legitimate website. For more tips, feel free to follow me on Twitter or visit our website at police.midland.on.ca. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and stay safe out there.